Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some fascinating material you sent over. These are excerpts from Matthew, chapters 5 through 8.
That's right. A really rich section of the text.
Yeah, and our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is really to get under the skin of these chapters. We want to look at the key teachings, the events, and try to understand, what concepts like blessedness and righteousness really mean here.
Absolutely. And also things like the nature of the law, prayer, faith. It's all packed in there.
And how these ideas might, impact how someone thinks about living their life today.
And it's such a mix, isn't it? You've got the big Sermon on the Mount teachings,
Right on mountain.
then practical stuff about prayer and fasting, and then these really vivid stories of healings and interactions. It's quite a landscape to explore.
It really is. It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We hear phrases like, blessed are the poor in spirit, or being the salt of the earth all the time.
Mm-hmm. It's almost cultural background noise sometimes.
Exactly. But have you ever stopped to, really dig into what they mean? That's what we're going to try and do. So let's kick off with the big one, the Sermon on the Mount, starting with those Beatitudes.
Okay, yeah, the Beatitudes,
Yeah.
right at the start of chapter 5. And they are, well, they can seem a bit upside down at first glance, can't they?
Totally. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. You don't usually think of blessing and, poverty or sadness in the same breath.
Exactly. Happiness, abundant, that's usually the idea. So what's the insight here?
Well, it feels like it's flipping conventional wisdom, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Poor in spirit. It's probably not about money, right? More like a humility, an awareness you need something more.
That seems to be the core of it, recognizing your spiritual neediness, which paradoxically opens you up to the kingdom of heaven.
So the key insight is kind of like acknowledging your lack is the first step to spiritual wealth.
Precisely. And blessed are those who mourn. It's not saying sadness is great, but maybe that acknowledging the world's brokenness or your own part in it, that leads to comfort eventually.
Right. And empathy, a desire for things to be right. That makes sense.
That awareness, that longing, it ultimately brings solace.
Then blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Meekness always sounds like weakness, but maybe it's more like controlled strength.
Yeah. Strength under control, a willingness to yield, perhaps, rather than dominate. And the idea that they inherit the earth, it's unexpected.
So true power isn't brute force, maybe. It's more about humble endurance.
I think that captures it well. It's a different kind of power dynamic being presented, not seizing control, but this patient endurance that ultimately receives the promise, like a long-term inheritance.
Okay. And then blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. This one feels a bit more straightforward.
It does, a deep yearning, a real gut-level desire for justice, for moral goodness. The promise is satisfaction.
If you genuinely crave what's right, you'll find it,
Yeah.
essentially. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that hunger will be met. And then, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy.
That one feels like clear cause and effect. You show mercy, you get mercy.
Exactly. It points to this interconnectedness, the kind of world we create by our actions. Mercy isn't passive, it's active compassion. And the reward is reciprocal.
Compassion creates compassion. Got it. What's next?
Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. This suggests a kind of inner integrity, singleness of purpose.
Ah, like no hidden agendas, no duplicity.
Right.
And that allows for a clearer view of God.
That seems to be the idea. Inner sincerity opens that door to spiritual insight.
Okay? And blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God.
This elevates peacemaking, doesn't it? Actively working to reconcile, to create harmony.
So it's not just not fighting, it's making peace. And that reflects something divine.
Precisely. It reflects God's own nature. And being called children of God implies that family resemblance, you could say.
Right. Then the really tough one. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake.
Yeah, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And it flows right into being reviled and persecuted for following him. It's a hard teaching.
Finding blessing in suffering for doing good, that's challenging.
It suggests that standing for what's right might actually lead to opposition in the world. But there's a heavenly reward attached.
And the call to rejoice and be exceeding glad when that happens. That's asking a lot.
It really shifts the focus, doesn't it? The ultimate reward isn't earthly comfort, but something deeper. And he connects it to the prophets before them, establishing this lineage of faithful suffering.
Okay. So after laying out who's blessed, he moves to these metaphors, right? Salt and light.
Exactly. Describing the role these people should play. Ye are the salt of the earth.
Salt preserves, adds flavor. So if the salt loses its savor, its distinct quality.
It becomes useless. Good for nothing but to be cast out and to be trodden underfoot. It's a stark warning.
About maintaining your essential purpose,
Yeah.
your effectiveness.
I think so. It implies believers have this vital role, preservation, adding value. Then, ye are the light of the world.
Like a city on a hill, can't be hidden.
A powerful image, visible to everyone, a beacon.
So their lives, their actions should be obvious, like putting a candle on a stand, not hiding it.
Right. And it connects directly to letting your light so shine before men that they may see your good works.
And glorify your Father which is in heaven. So the good works aren't for self-praise, but to point people towards God.
Exactly. It's about being a living testament,
Hmm.
which leads very naturally into the whole discussion about the law.
Ah, yes. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. That's a key statement, isn't it?
Absolutely crucial, especially given what follows. He's not throwing out the Old Testament.
No, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
He says not one jot or one tittle, like the smallest marks in writing, will disappear until everything's fulfilled.
It emphasizes the enduring value of the whole scripture. Even the tiny details matter.
And then he connects it to action. Breaking even the least commandments and teaching others to do so makes you least in the kingdom. But doing and teaching them makes you great.
So it's not just personal piety, it's about influence, about teaching too.
And then comes that really challenging line. Except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven.
Wow. Okay. The scribes and Pharisees were the experts, right? Meticulous about the law.
Exactly. So how do you exceed their righteousness?
Well, this seems to be the pivot point. Jesus starts digging deeper, moving beyond just the outward actions to the inner heart, the motivations. He uses that "you have heard it said, but I say to you" formula.
Right, like with murder. The old law said don't kill. Obvious enough.
But Jesus says even being angry without cause or calling someone names puts you in danger of judgment.
So it's the anger, the hate in the heart. That's the root issue, not just the final act.
Exactly. Moving from outward act to inward disposition. He even advises sorting out disputes quickly before they escalate, which kind of flows into the teaching on adultery.
The old law. Don't commit the physical act.
But Jesus says even looking lustfully is committing adultery in your heart.
Wow. Again, the inner thought, the desire, that's a much, much higher standard.
It is. And then you get that really graphic advice about plucking out your eye or cutting off your hand if it causes you to sin.
Which surely isn't literal self-harm.
No, almost certainly not. It's incredibly strong hyperbole, right? A metaphor for taking radical action against sin, whatever it takes.
The idea being that spiritual health is worth more than, well, keeping your eye or hand if they lead you astray. Better to lose a part than the whole.
Precisely. The stakes are that high. The same principle seems to apply to divorce. The law allowed it, with a certificate.
But Jesus restricts it dramatically. Only for fornication, he says. Otherwise, remarrying is adultery.
A very tough teaching then and now really underscores his view on the permanence of marriage.
Okay, then oaths. Don't break your sworn promises to God. That was the old way.
But Jesus says, basically, don't swear at all. Not by heaven, earth, your head, nothing.
Just let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything more comes from evil.
Yeah, cometh of evil. The idea seems to be that your basic word should be so reliable, so truthful, that you don't need oaths to back it up.
Cultivating integrity. Makes sense. Then the famous one about retaliation. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
It's a standard principle of justice in many ancient legal systems. Lex talionis.
But Jesus flips it completely. Resist not evil. Turn the other cheek.
It's radical. It's not necessarily saying be a doormat in every situation, perhaps, but it directly challenges that instinct for immediate tit-for-tat violence. It's about breaking the cycle.
And the examples are so vivid. Give your cloak to, go the extra mile.
Offer more than is demanded. Don't turn away borrowers. It goes against every instinct of self-preservation and protecting what's mine.
Deliberately countercultural, provocative even.
Absolutely. And then comes perhaps the most demanding teaching of all. Love your enemies.
Not just tolerate them, love them. Bless those who curse you, do good to haters, pray for persecutors.
It's an astonishing command. And the reason given. That ye may be the children of your Father, which is in heaven.
Because God lets the sun shine and the rain fall on everyone, good and bad alike. So we should emulate that impartial generosity.
That seems to be the logic. It sets the bar incredibly high. If you only love those who love you back, what's special about that? Anyone can do that.
The standard is different. A love that isn't just reciprocal. And it leads to that seemingly impossible command. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect.
Maybe perfect here means striving for that kind of complete, all-encompassing love and integrity rather than literal flawlessness.
Still an incredibly high aim.
Oh,
Okay, so that's chapter 5. Chapter 6 then shifts focus to religious practices.
yeah, the practices of righteousness, giving alms, prayer, fasting. And the big theme is motivation.
Right. The warning against doing these things before men, to be seen of them.
Because if you're just doing it for human applause, well, they have their reward. That's all you get.
The contrast between seeking human approval versus seeking God's approval. So when giving, do it secretly. Let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth.
A great image for true secrecy. The reward comes from the Father who seeth in secret.
And the same for prayer. Don't make a show of it in public. Go into your room, shut the door, pray privately.
Again, the emphasis is on that secret personal connection. The reward is from God, not from looking pious.
And then he gives advice on prayer. Don't use vain repetitions like people who think more words equals better prayer.
Right. It's about sincerity, not quantity, which leads into the model prayer, the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, which rise in heaven.
Mm.
It covers so much, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Reverence, God's kingdom, his will, daily needs, forgiveness, guidance.
It's incredibly concise yet comprehensive. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors.
And that link is made explicit right after, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you forgive others, God forgives you. If you don't.
Neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. It puts a huge emphasis on our need to extend grace.
Okay. And fasting. Same principle again.
Exactly. Don't look miserable to show off how pious you are. Wash your face. Look normal. Let it be a secret between you and God.
Inner reality over outward show. That theme just keeps coming back. Then the focus shifts to treasure.
Yes. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, because earthly stuff decays, gets stolen.
Moth, rust, thieves, yeah.
But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, which are secure.
And the punchline? For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
Yeah.
What you value directs your whole life.
That's it. Your heart follows your investments, basically, which leads into the metaphor of the eye.
The light of the body. If your eye is single, maybe focused, healthy, your whole life is full of light.
But if your eye is evil, maybe greedy, unfocused, unhealthy, then everything is darkness. It's about your inner vision, your core perspective.
If the very source of light within you is darkness, how deep is that darkness?
Wow. It really makes you think about what you're focusing on, what you're letting in. And he follows this immediately with, no man can serve two masters. You cannot serve God and mammon.
Mammon being wealth. Material possessions, basically.
Yeah, wealth personified, almost like a rival god. You have to choose your ultimate allegiance. You can't be truly devoted to both.
Divided loyalties won't work. Okay, this leads into the teaching against anxiety, right? Worrying about food, drink, clothes.
Exactly. Take no thought for your life. He points to the birds, God feeds them. Look at the lilies, God clothes them beautifully.
And the question, are you not much better than they if God cares for them?
Surely he'll care for you.
Yeah.
It's an argument from the lesser to the greater. Worrying doesn't add a single hour to your life or inch to your height anyway.
So the point isn't irresponsibility, but trust.
Trust and priority. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Focus on what truly matters, and the rest will fall into place.
And that final line, take therefore no thought for the morrow. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Deal with today's challenges today.
Don't borrow trouble from the future. Wise advice.
It really is. Okay, chapter 7 starts with judging others. Judge not, that ye be not judged. That's one everyone knows.
Or thinks they know. The reason given is key. The standard you use on others will be used on you.
Reciprocity again.
Yeah.
And then the image of the speck, the mote in your brother's eye, and the huge log, the beam in your own.
It's such a brilliant picture of hypocrisy, isn't it? So quick to spot tiny faults elsewhere while ignoring massive ones in ourselves.
The call is self-examination first. Deal with your own big issues before you try to help someone with their smaller ones.
Exactly. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam. It's not necessarily saying never discern or help, but check yourself first, which then leads to that slightly odd bit.
Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine.
Yeah, it seems to be about discernment. Don't waste precious things on those who will just trample them or turn on you. Wisdom in sharing.
Okay, using judgment in who you share deep truths with. Then, a big encouragement, ask, seek, knock.
Yes. Ask, and you'll receive. Seek, you'll find. Knock, the door will be opened. It's a call to persistent prayer and seeking God.
And the analogy of a human father giving good gifts, if even flawed humans do that.
How much more will the perfect Heavenly Father give good things to those who ask? It's meant to build confidence in approaching God.
Which leads beautifully into the golden rule.
Therefore, all things whatsoever you would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them.
Treat others how you want to be treated. And he says this sums up the law and the prophets.
It's a fundamental ethical principle, so simple yet so profound. Then, the two gates.
Right. The wide gate and broad path lead to destruction, and lots of people go that way.
Versus the narrow gate and difficult path that lead to life, and only a few find it.
So the easy, popular way isn't necessarily the right way. It takes effort, intentionality.
It presents a clear choice, which is followed by a warning about false prophets.
They look harmless like sheep, but inside they're like ravening wolves. Dangerous.
And how do you spot them? You shall know them by their fruits.
Like trees. Good trees produce good fruit. Bad trees produce bad fruit. You judge by the results, the actions the character produced.
A practical test. Don't just listen to the words, look at the life. This connects to the next point about true discipleship.
Saying, Lord, Lord, isn't the key to entering the kingdom.
No, it's he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Action and obedience matter more than just verbal claims.
He even says some who did miracles in his name will be rejected because their hearts weren't right.
Seems so. They didn't truly know him or do the Father's will. Obedience from the heart is key.
And the sermon ends with that final parable, the two builders.
The wise man builds on rock, hears Jesus' words, and does them. The foolish man builds on sand, hears the words, but doesn't do them.
And when the storms come life's trials, the house on the rock stands firm. The one on sandbank collapses.
A powerful image about the necessity of putting these teachings into practice. It's the foundation.
And the reaction of the crowd.
Astonishment, because he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. There was a power, a directness they hadn't heard before.
Okay, so that concludes the Sermon on the Mount proper. Chapter 8 then shifts gears into action, into miracles.
Exactly. We see the authority demonstrated. As he comes down the mountain, huge crowds follow, and the first encounter is with a leper.
Lepers were total outcasts, unclean. But this man worships Jesus and says, Lord, if thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. Such faith.
And Jesus' response is immediate compassion. He reaches out, touches the untouchable man, a radical act in itself, and says, I will, be thou clean, and instantly he's healed.
Amazing. Power and compassion breaking down social and religious barriers.
And then Jesus tells him, interestingly, don't broadcast it, but go follow the law, show the priest, make the offering, fulfilling the law, just as he said.
Okay. Next up, the centurion, a Roman officer.
Right, a figure of authority.
Yeah.
His servant is paralyzed, suffering terribly. He comes to Jesus.
But shows incredible humility. I'm not worthy for you to come under my roof. He gets authority. He says, just say the word, and my servant will be healed.
He believes Jesus' authority works even at a distance. And Jesus is amazed. He says he hasn't found faith like this in all of Israel.
That's incredible. Faith from an outsider surpassing that of the insiders.
And Jesus uses this moment to predict that many Gentiles from east and west will join the patriarchs in the kingdom, while some expected heirs will be left out.
Wow.
And the servant healed that very hour, just as the centurion believed. A powerful lesson about faith crossing boundaries.
Definitely. Then Jesus goes to Peter's house.
And finds Peter's mother-in-law sick with a fever. He simply touches her hand, the fever leaves, and she gets up and starts serving them.
Instant healing leading to immediate service. Simple, powerful.
And that evening, word has clearly spread. They bring many who are demon-possessed and sick.
And he heals them all. Casts out spirits with the word, heals the diseases.
Matthew connects this directly to Isaiah's prophecy. Himself took our infirmities and bare our sicknesses, showing his mission involved taking on human suffering.
As the crowds keep pressing, Jesus decides to cross the lake, and a scribe comes up.
Yeah, very enthusiastically offers, Master, I will follow thee whithersoever thou goest, full commitment.
But Jesus' reply is pretty stark. Foxes have holes, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head.
A reality check. A warning about the cost, the lack of worldly security involved in following him. It highlights the hardship.
Seems like it. Then another disciple asks to go bury his father first. Seems reasonable.
But Jesus' reply sounds harsh. Follow me, and let the dead bury their dead.
What does that even mean?
It's debated, but the core seems to be the absolute urgency and priority of the call to follow him now. The kingdom work, the spiritual life, takes precedence even over significant family duties. Let the spiritually dead deal with the physically dead, perhaps.
Radical commitment required.
Okay.
So they get in the boat to cross the sea.
And this huge storm blows up suddenly, violent, waves crashing over the boat. Jesus is asleep.
The disciples are panicking. Lord, save us. We're going to drown.
He wakes up, and first, he gently rebukes them. Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he just speaks to the wind and waves, and boom, complete calm.
Authority over nature itself. That must have been terrifying and awe-inspiring.
It shows his power, but also maybe their lack of trust in his presence with them. Their reaction is pure wonder. What manner of man is this?
They're starting to grasp just how extraordinary he is. So they finally get to the other side, the country of the Gergesenes.
And are immediately confronted by two demon-possessed men coming out of the tombs, extremely violent, feared by everyone.
A picture of extreme spiritual oppression and alienation.
And the demons recognize Jesus instantly. What have we to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God? Art thou come hither to torment us before the time?
They know who he is and seem aware of some future judgment. Then they ask to be sent into a nearby herd of pigs.
A large herd. Jesus simply says, go. And the spirits enter the pigs.
And a whole herd just stampedes down the cliff into the lake and drowns.
It's a bizarre, dramatic, and frankly disturbing event. Shows his power over demons, but the result is chaotic destruction.
Yeah, the guys looking after the pigs run off terrified, tell everyone in town.
And the whole town comes out to meet Jesus. But instead of being grateful or amazed,
They ask him to leave. They're scared,
yeah,
upset about the pigs, overwhelmed.
probably a mix of all three. Fear, economic loss, the sheer disruptive power they've witnessed. It shows that even clear demonstrations of power don't always lead to welcome acceptance.
A really complex reaction.
Yeah.
And that's where chapter 8 ends.
So yeah, that takes us through Matthew 5 to 8. From the heights of ethical teaching to these powerful, sometimes unsettling displays of authority and compassion.
Right, so wrapping up this deep dive, we've really covered a lot. The Sermon on the Mount's radical ethics, focusing on the heart, not just outward stuff.
The importance of genuine, secret devotion, giving, praying, fasting for God's eyes only. The model for prayer itself.
And then seeing faith in action. The humility and trust of the centurion, for example, leading to healing.
Absolutely. And we saw the power of Jesus over sickness, demons, even nature, but also the cost of following him, the potential hardship, the radical priority it demands.
It really feels like these ancient chapters still pack a punch, offering insights into, well, human nature, spirituality, living meaningfully today.
They definitely do. They challenge and provoke thought, even now.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Thinking back over all these teachings, these stories, is there one single idea or maybe a challenge that really sticks with you? Maybe the call to love enemies, or the warning about judging, or that image of building on rock versus sand.
It's worth considering.
Yeah, perhaps take that question back to these chapters yourself and see what resonates. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.